So I just want to wish everyone in Chinatown a happy new year. Excited to get back and started, the holiday season being over, and now we're getting back into the swing of things up at the State House, getting working on bills and obviously working on the budget. Last year we had a very successful budget, passing a lot of new initiatives, whether it be free school meals for every child in the Commonwealth, free community college for anyone over 25, having the ability to get free community college, in-state tuition for those that are getting the same in-state tuition rates for those that are children of immigrants here in Massachusetts. Will be able to go to state schools and get the same in-state tuition rates that residents of Massachusetts will be able to get. So we had some real big success in the budget. We also had some local successes in the budget with some earmarks here for CCBA, for Chinatown Main Streets, for a number of different initiatives that we had. We were able to, for YES, for Youth and Central Services, we were able to get some money to really have some boots on the ground here in Chinatown and make some real differences, whether it is for elderly services, for youth services. These are the things that we continue to focus on. This is why we run for office and we get elected, because we want to deliver for our districts. And being the chair of Ways and Means, I've had the honor and the benefit to be able to deliver for my district directly, and particularly for Chinatown, obviously a community I care deeply about. As we go into the new year, we're starting that process of the new fiscal year 25 budget, and there's going to be some challenges. Revenues are slightly down, amongst we've had some real growth over the last couple of years, but now we're hitting some points of revenue decline. That's probably expected, because it's just the nature of the beast. What goes up in some respects must come down a little bit. So we're going to navigate through that. That's something that we're dealing with right now and working through. But we're looking forward to having a productive budget process. The governor will be filing her budget at the end of January, and once she does that, we will start the process at the House Ways and Means Committee.
Yep.
So besides the budget, we're certainly working on a number of bills, a number of initiatives. We recently passed a gun control bill that will change some of the registration points and try to make get rid of the ghost guns that are out there on the streets that are very hard to track, and make it very easy for criminals or for people wanting to do the wrong thing to get guns in their hands. Obviously, we still have a gun violence issue here, not just in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but also in the city of Boston directly. Not as much in Chinatown. We've been very blessed that we have pretty safe streets here in downtown area and in Chinatown. They can always be safer, but I think we are very blessed that we have that. But in the city of Boston itself, we do have some gun violence that we are still working through and working on. And I'm working with the public safety officials, whether it be Commissioner Cox, Mayor Wu, and many others, to try to make it a safer environment for the city of Boston as a whole. But this gun control legislation will certainly be a step in the right direction. We're also going to be working on some housing issues. Certainly housing is probably the number one challenge that we face here in the Commonwealth. The cost of housing, the production of housing it has not kept up with the growth in our population over the last decade, and it's created a lot of challenging situations for a lot of folks, not just to be able to stay in their homes, but also for those that want to buy homes and want to grow here in Massachusetts. We have a lot of kids that come here for college, and we want them to stay. We want them to prosper here in Massachusetts. And so there's an enormous $4.3 billion housing bond bill that the governor filed with a lot of initiatives in it, where that is working its way through the process now, and will hopefully give us some opportunities to build more affordable housing, to build some workforce housing, some transit-oriented housing, things that will allow us here in the city and in downtown in particular to kind of bring the cost of living down a little bit, to be able to stay here in Chinatown, stay here in downtown Boston or in the North End in my neighborhood. Those things have been very, something we hear a lot about over in the communities, not just here in Chinatown, but also across the Commonwealth. And so that's something we are laser focused on.
The most important thing in your district right now?
I think housing's like I said, I think housing's the biggest challenge we face. This is not just in my district, but the entire Commonwealth.
Housing were related to the migrant issue, no?
The migrant issue is definitely a challenging one. I'm talking the migrant issue is one that has picked up steam in the last year. I don't know how long it's here to stay. It really will depend on how long the federal government, keeps, doesn't I don't want to say that it needs to get its act together, but they've allowed this discussion with folks seeking asylum to kind of grow into the space that now it's put the burden of fixing it or keeping it propped up and working is left onto the states and onto the municipalities, and we have had to we've had to fund that. Many folks that are coming here legally seeking asylum, and they're here legally, but they don't have any place to stay. They don't have work. They don't have their workforce visas yet. Those things take time. We don't want them sleeping on the street, so we have to find places for them to stay. But until the federal government fixes what's ever going on at the border, or makes determinations on how to better operate that. B, they could give us money, or send us more money in relation to that. I know the Biden administration has tried to do that, but that has not gotten its way through Congress. Or C, come up with a way to fix the workforce component, make it much more smoother, much more faster. One of those three things has to happen for us to be able to keep this sustainable from the state's perspective. It is not long-term sustainable, just from a financial discussion. But we are working on it. We are in a place where we can still financially do that. But that doesn't mean that's not something we can sustainably hold long term. So something's going to have to change.
And we know that for whichever number that the Massachusetts receives, among them, Boston received the most.
Probably of the migrants. Yes, Boston. I think there was 1,300 families in the most recent report. I think there was 1,300 families that were in Boston. That's out of the 7,500 plus families that are here.
Since you're the Boston delegation, right?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's certainly it's a large component, but Boston's obviously the biggest city in the Commonwealth. So I would expect Boston to have the largest amount.
But the gap is so big.
The gap is pretty big because there's no other city that's quite as big as Boston. I mean, the second closest is I think Worcester, and it's only somewhere in the 150,000 range of people versus Boston, which is basically 700,000 or high 600s, or I don't know what the most recent number would be, but it's somewhere in that range. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about potentially six times the amount of population already. So certainly you're going to have a large gap between. Because the resources are here, there's more resources here than there are anywhere else. It's spread out over 91 communities in the Commonwealth. 91 different communities have migrant families staying with them. So this is definitely a shared responsibility.
But does Boston really have that much resource to support this?
From a resource standpoint, I think they do. From the financial standpoint has been laid on us, from the state's perspective, and we welcome that discussion. It is certainly challenging, not one we've walked away from. We continue to fund it at the necessary amounts, but it's definitely certainly putting a strain on our resources. And again, this is my point of being a long-term conversation. Something has to change on the from the federal standpoint. If that does not happen, then I don't see how this is long-term sustainable from the state's resources side of it.
And then, in terms of also probably related. So since you are one of the Boston delegation, are you paying attention to the mass incasts?
Oh yeah. No, we gave from a funding standpoint, we sent the city some money on the transitional housing component of that from the last two budgets. I think that was those were critical pieces to the puzzle on trying to accomplish what the mayor was trying to do. I think that obviously I was just there last Friday afternoon. I was just over there. Thursday afternoon. I was just over there.
You went there?
Well, I was over there for a wake, for Stephen Chan's wake
at
Wing Fook, and it's a much different environment than it was prior to the cleanup. I mean, I'd been there plenty of times during the throes of it. It's a much different environment. Is that long-term sustainable? I think, knock on wood, it hopefully is. I think that the mayor has really put a large commitment to this, and the BPD has put a large commitment to this, and I think that they're working through it. I think it's working so far. I think the real test will come when the weather gets warmer.
How often do your Boston delegation meet up?
We meet typically about once a month. Depending on the issue, depending on what's going on. I would say formally we meet probably about once a month. Informally, we meet all the time to discuss issues, whether we're in session or...
Including the Senate?
Including the Senate sometimes, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in total, how many there are?
I think there are 17 members of the House and I want to say there's 4 members of the Senate that are members of the Boston delegation. You got to remember, like some seats have more than just Boston. You know, us in the Boston delegation want to make sure that we do our best to support the city's agenda. I mean, we're all in this together. We're all working together for the betterment of the city and the people that we represent. And so there are certainly plenty of times when we, have to work together. It doesn't matter if we're getting along politically, but we have to work together for the city of Boston and make sure that we're doing our best job. So, okay.